news. At this point, we'll move on to have a conversation on the new Lagos State anti-corruption law and a host of other matters begging for attention, including rising insecurity, the Issa Pantami saga, and a whole lot more, with Dele Farotimi, a lawyer, human rights activist, political activist, author, and member of Citizens Rally Against Oppression. Dele Farotimi, good to have you on the program. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here.
Well, Dele Farotimi, before we start, I see you look different.
Yeah, they were in disguise.
Well, the last time you were here, you had dreadlocks, but I see that you're as clean-shaven as I am. Is this a... Oh, really?
You are bald. I'm clean-shaven.
No, I'm not bald.
Two different ball games.
I'm clean-shaven. But okay, if you say you are clean-shaven, is it part of the revolutionary statement?
Well, actually, it's a situation where if we accept the fact that we're a nation that has practically gone to the dogs, the madhouse. As I said at the time, I said the hair was meant to project the state of the nation itself. The nation hasn't changed, but the time arose for the Were to go into disguise. So the Were is in disguise, just like each and every one of all of us living in Nigeria who pretend to be sane, even when our entire country is one giant asylum. So why don't I just try looking like everybody else? Right now, I could just be the man next door. So Were is in disguise. We're all in disguise.
Well, I hope you are not saying that because I'm bald, as you put it.
The Lord is your Baba.
That I'm also a madman. Because we remain madman.
Which Nigerian is sane, if you must tell yourselves the truth? What sane people live the way we live? You just recounted the litany of insanity that we have normalized. Children being kidnapped inside schools, bandits dislodging soldiers from military outposts. You've described the litany of insanity. It's not, look, any sane person runs away from here. Those who are saying I've already left amongst us. Why would Twitter come here? Why would anybody come here? Look at the way we live. Look at our reality. Is this sane? So please, let's be factual with ourselves. At least diagnose our problems properly. Nobody sane lives the way we live. Nobody.
Anyway, Dele, I like your new look.
Thank you very much.
And I'm sure that you'll get more admirers, particularly from...
I just look like any one of you.
From you know where. Anyway, very quickly. What's your take on the signing into law by the Lagos State Governor of the Lagos State Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Law? That law was passed in December 2020, but Governor Sanwo-Olu has now assented to it. What are the implications in terms of transparency, accountability, holding government officials from Lagos State accountable, considering the fact that we have the EFCC at the federal level and the ICPC? Do you think, as some people have argued, that this is an attempt by Lagos State to promote federalism? Or, as some others have argued, this is an attempt by Lagos State to protect his own corrupt officials?
Well, first thing, let me enter a caveat setting out. And that caveat is the fact that I don't subjectify truth. If we're in a federal democracy, which we are not, it's okay for the state to domesticate laws or to even presume to extend its operation somehow, as long as it is not in dissonance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic. But there are several levels where we are not what we say that we are. So the question you have asked, if the truth be told, is actually a combination of both. Lagos State has rightly legislated in an area where it has the right to legislate. The question is, what is the motive? The issue of motivation should be secondary when we're dealing with the issue of constitutional correctness. But the motivation itself, which is sometimes more important, is also undergirded by presumption by the ruling hegemony in Lagos State. And that presumption is one that believes that it would forever remain in power in Lagos State. What is today intended as a way to protect their own, perhaps as a way to also prepare for the onslaught expected from the federal government and those who will not sanction Asiwaju's presidential ambition, is a preemptive strike. There is nothing new there. They'll probably tie themselves up in court for as long as it takes. It's just one of the things. Because I recall that I was on this show once, and I was asked a question related to the Lagos State pensions law. At the time, I remember saying at the time as well that it wasn't a bad law. I didn't see anything wrong with it, only for me to find out later that that law was required before a financial arrangement could be made for the state. And we always know what happens to money that comes into Lagos State. I will not say we always know. I will say categorically that the finances of Lagos State is probably one of the most opaque, given the amount of scrutiny that has been faced by Lagos State. But a law domesticating the EFCC law or creating a corruption agency, the substance is that they are within their right to do that. There is nothing wrong with those laws, as long as it does not conflict with the Constitution. Crime is not on the exclusive list belonging to the federal government alone. I believe Rivers State has a similar legislation, and that also, if you go into the genesis of that law, you see the motivations again. So there is nothing wrong with the law. It's like, if you think about it, we have LCDAs in Lagos State that pre-existed the APC government. It was during the AC PDP days. We are now in APC days. Asiwaju is the chieftain of the APC. The LCDAs remain the LCDAs. So these laws are not necessarily about what is achievable, what is doable. It's almost always about political expediency. Lagos State is not short on ideas. There are always 1,001 ideas. The question is, what are the motivations?
Well, what are the motivations? Can you share what you think those motivations are?
Well,
we're going to break soon, but... Yeah.
Let me say this. I recently cried out in Lagos State. I believe that was earlier in February. I cried out because a plot was revealed to me of an attempt, not even an attempt, an ongoing plot coordinated by one of the bearded clowns in Lagos State to eliminate me. I went to the police, I went to the DSS. Petition had been submitted since February. Nothing has happened till date. And I did say at the time that Lagos State is a criminal empire, that the governing hegemony in Lagos State is closely aligned with the criminal elements in Lagos State. When I said this at the time, it sounded far-fetched. But this is about 2 months later, in fact, over 2 months later, the Commissioner of Police in Lagos State has not said a single word. Now, you're talking motivation. When Babatunde Fashola was removed, when he left office in Lagos State and the political infighting were going on, I remember one of his famous quotes, "May your loyalty not be tested." Nobody tested his loyalty further after that. He went on to become a super minister. Ambode followed closely on the heels of Mr. Fashola, or rather, Agent Fash. He followed very closely after him. We also have the government advisory...
I do beg your pardon. We've got to take a short break now. We'll be back with more, and you can finish that thought. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Dele Farotimi, lawyer, human rights activist, seasoned political activist, author and member of the Citizens Rally Against Oppression. Dele, before we went on the break, you were concluding your thoughts on the motivation behind this act.
Look, Lagos State on its own is probably bigger than 10 states combined in Nigeria and has the biggest economy outside of the federal government. But its finances and its activities have always been opaque. Attempts have been made variously to demand explanations for budgetary allocations, spendings, under a lot of requests under the Freedom of Information Act, nothing. All you would ever get, stonewalling. So the question of motivation, I believe, is very simple. If you look at the beginning, if you go back to the beginning in 1999, Asiwaju was there for 8 years. In the immediate aftermath of Asiwaju came Fashola. Good succession planning. Fashola left. There were several murmurs, loud noises concerning how profligate and corrupt he was. Nobody investigated that till date. It's the same hegemony from 1999 till date. So when that hegemony is now saying that it is creating an anti-corruption agency, yes, we would rightly point out that truth is not subjective. It is within its right to be creating such an agency. It is the motivation that people would always raise. And those who raise this motivation as issues have over 20 years of history to point at. Lagos State has never once held any one of its officers accountable at any level, and the corruption is right in your nose. It stinks. It's not that it just stinks. If you step out onto any street in Lagos, you'll find that there is a very close relationship, one, between the muscles of the APC in Lagos State, that's the NURTW, the police, and every layers of rulership in Lagos State, including the traditional rulership. So what you find at the end of the day is that there is a synergy that has been created, a most syncretious relationship between the state, the Road Transport Union, which is essentially in Lagos State a cover for the strong arm of the APC. So when you now begin to there are so many things in Lagos State to be talked about, but when Lagos State is talking about anti-corruption agency, it's like saying that you are setting up a commission made up of foxes to watch over the hen house. This is the same state where that's in every other state in Nigeria anyway, where the government in power wins all councillorship election, wins all chairmanship election. Is not unique to Lagos State. So when you bring that reality to bear, and then you are now filtering that against the fact that it is the same corrupt entity that is setting up an anti-corruption agency, please.
All right, it's iffy to you, and when you look at it critically, and that's what leads to the next question that will be about, can this law setup be used to try somebody that had done a crime many years before? And what do you think it will be used as? Is it to, put people out of the dock, or people that are being looked at for corruption or being tried for corruption, they have cases of corruption pending against them? Is it to set them free, or for the ruling hegemony, as you say, to now tell people that might go astray in their own political caucus that we have a tool like this, that if you mess up, we'll whip you back in line because we can try you, we can go the whole jugular. Because the beauty about the law is the way it's being used. And when you look at it critically, are we not going to have a day where somebody will go out of line, maybe still within the hegemony in Lagos, and they'll use this law against them to pull them back in line and charge them?
Let me put it this way. Yorubas have this proverb. They say when you are making the law with the slave in mind, remember that there is every chance that your own child will be caught up by the same laws. Every sword is double-edged. The key motivation, as far as I can see, and this is me looking at this from within because usually when laws like this come up, you can almost always track back to some issue that might be brewing somewhere. And what I see, and I might very well be wrong, what I see is a situation where Tinubu's ambition is not in complete consonance with the intentions of certain powers that be. And the EFCC was always going to be a tool to be used to hold him in some ways. Now, if the wicked experience with the domestication of this anti-corruption agency thing is to guide us, all I see here is a preemptive strike intended to offer Asiwaju some sort of legal card to play by the time the EFCC begins its onslaught, as it is most likely going to. That is one. Now, as to the effectiveness of the law in protecting him, that is at best tenors and academic. And I say this because the Anti-Corruption Agency of Lagos State, or any other state for that matter, will be limited in its capacity to try certain corruption cases, especially if they now begin to involve cross-border crimes, or if it involves infractions of the banking laws, most of which are federal in nature. So it might at best be something to just have to fight with. That's on one hand. Now, that it might come back to haunt members of the hegemony. Look, the beauty of every law, even when it is unjustly or even when it is corruptly promulgated, is that eventually it will catch up with each and every person if and when power shifts. And power always shifts. Every hegemony comes to an end someday. Asiwaju and his hegemony will not always remain in power in Lagos State forever. And frankly speaking, I don't see how this hegemony will continue in Lagos State beyond his current lifetime. But we'll see how it goes. Okay,
Dele, let's go beyond politics and talk law. I mean, you are primarily a lawyer. The social
retired
conscience.
one.
well, at least your training is still there. Now, what are we dealing with here? A conflict of laws between the state and the federal government. And can this law, new law being proposed by the Lagos State government, can it have retroactive effect? And I say that in the light of Section 36, subsection 8. I think it's Section 36, subsection 8, dealing with fair hearing, which means that a person cannot be tried for an offense that does not exist as a crime at the time it was committed. Now, you have been talking about protecting Asiwaju. So, are you talking about retroactivity? And how is that as a principle in law, in this particular instance?
I am exceedingly happy with the fact that I am actually no longer a lawyer. And that is for a simple reason. Practicing law in a lawless society is an ordeal on its own. Now, you're talking law in a society where in reality, it is the will of men that actually rules, not the law itself that rules in that society. So, when we talk about retroactivity of the law, whether there is a conflict or is a conflict of illegalities, a conflict of corrupt interest, at the end of the day, this law is not meant to fight any corruption. EFCC itself is not meant to fight any corruption. There will be conflicts of interests, their interests. They might eventually drag these conflicts through the court. It should be sufficient to buy time for the 2023 election. And thereafter, you will find that, I think, okay, yesterday people who are facing EFCC charges, there are a few of them in the current federal cabinet. What difference did it make after a point? All these things that we do, we're dealing essentially with theories. The reality is that there are no conflict of any laws because there really aren't any laws in Nigeria. If there are laws, they exist only for the poor. How many people are in jail today because they stole goats in Ikoyi prison right next to you here? And how many people are living next door to you because they stole money from the person who stole the goat? So, insofar as it relates to the conflict of any law, yeah, there will be conflicts. There have always been conflicts. And I'm always, look, if nothing else, you have to credit Lagos State with having had a succession of excellent attorney generals who come up with good laws that test the limit of federal powers in Nigeria. But you cannot also remove that from the fact that these laws that are being tested, the motivations are always self-serving, but it does not remove from the fact that the jurisprudence of Nigeria is being deepened. So I would, as a lawyer, say clearly that we are not in a society of laws. All these arguments are distractions. As you and I are speaking, somebody is being kidnapped somewhere. Some child from Borno is being moved to school in other states as we are talking here. Somebody is already losing his life on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway because Fulani herdsmen are. So in reality, all these things that they give us to debate, they are actually distractions. The reality is that there are no laws binding them. All that you are saying, conflict of what law? It is only one. Look, how did corruption end up becoming a special class of offenses that you have to be trying under one state? Crime is crime. Before EFCC will charge anybody with money laundering, he's done God knows how many infractions of the Banking Act. There are so many laws that he would have infracted, but once he's a big man, they call it corruption. Corruption has become a catch-all phrase for stealing, armed robbery, pure brigandage. Somebody stealing more than they can spend in 100 lifetime, and it is called corruption. That's madness. So please, there are conflict of laws. Yeah, there will be conflicts.
It does descend into farce when you think of sections 128 and 129 of the Constitution, which does vest state assemblies with oversight of the state's funds. But then at the same time today, since April 6th, I believe, till this day as we're sitting here, Justin is on strike because the same governors refused to uphold sections 81 and 121, subsections 3. So we all pick and choose when we want to apply the Constitution, do we not? But that's just a comment. My question for you is that you've basically described this Lagos law as either a shield to protect Asiwaju Tinubu or a weapon that he can wield as he considers a presidential run in 2023. But what is your opinion now of talking about a general election in 2023 when today Nigeria is on fire? Are we not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic?
Wow. Have you been checking my social media updates?
No, I don't use social media.
Oh. Okay, so 3 years ago, a friend of mine, Bayo, he posted something on Facebook. He said Nigeria rearranging chairs on the Titanic. So he said it on his own page, so I quoted it and posted it. This morning, Facebook reminded me, so I shared it again. So when you raise that,
I'm fascinated by the Titanic. One of my favorite poems is about the Titanic. It's a thing.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
Well, here is the thing. Every Nigerian, I've said this before, and I will repeat it with all emphasis available inside of me. If you hear anybody talking to you about the 2023 election, the person is either a fool or a member of the ruining class, or shall I say crass, in Nigeria. Nigerians are dying in hordes. I wonder exactly what part of Nigeria people are planning to have these 2023 elections in. I used to go to Ibadan before my grandmother died. I used to travel to Ibadan every weekend.
All right. Dele, we'll just quickly hold you for a bit. We'll come back to you after a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still with Dele Farotimi, lawyer, human rights activist, author, and members of Citizens Rally Against Oppression. Dele, before the break, we're talking about how not to engage in the futility of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Please carry on.
Yeah, I think we should first of all understand something. Yes, Nigeria is not an organic state. It didn't develop like most other states. It didn't come out, it was cobbled together. But the idea of a state is that all of us have donated our rights, and then the state is meant to protect all of us with the powers that we have given to the state. That was essentially the social compact theory of state. But the Nigerian situation is that the state is failing, and is failing rapidly. It is failing at an alarming rate. In fact, it's come to a point where it is not out of place to wonder if there are treasonous persons within the governance structures of Nigeria who have taken a decision to destroy the Nigerian state. Now, when you consider the fact that almost the entire Northwest, Northeast, you already have almost all the children in schools outside. of their own state, those who are still in any schools. When you consider the fact that I was reading Autumn yesterday, I believe it was in one of yesterday's papers, Autumn said he has 1 million IDPs in Benue State. Almost every one of the rural areas in the southwest is becoming a ghost town. They are becoming ghost towns everywhere. People are fleeing and trying to get into every population centers that are relatively better protected, probably because there is protection in numbers. And then people are sitting down in the face of this very clear implosion of the state at several levels. And they are talking about elections in 2023. Imo State, there is a shooting war. Enugu, wherever you turn in Nigeria, everything is more or less suggestive of the Titanic going down. And the analogy you have painted is not unlike our situation. The country is sinking. Okay. People are talking 2023 elections.
Okay, Dele. Pretty much reminds me of Rome was burning while Nero was fiddling. And that was the case in Rome, and it's looking like that in Nigeria. But I want to talk about Issa Pantami. And just to buttress on the point you were making earlier on, somebody did send me a message to say that your state to set up their own state anti-corruption body last year, and it's been passed into law. That's just as a side comment. But let's talk about Issa Pantami.
Yeah.
Dissect it with all of this you've seen just last week. He's still the minister as we speak today.
You know, I had rounded up work on my new book. I'd actually given it to the editor. But along the line, I had raised a line at a point. I said, editor, important that you remind me to deal with proper definition of the Fulani Islamist agenda. And then the editor reminded me yesterday, but Pantami had reminded me before my editor. And I think we should all thank God for Pantami. The Pantamification of Nigeria did not begin with Pantami. What we are having is a situation where Pantami represents the point of convergence between the Fulani agenda and the Islamist agenda, and I would explain it. At every point, you have rarely ever heard of a Fulani agenda on his own. It never stands on his own. There is either Hausa Fulani, because there is a need to hide behind a bigger entity. And then it became the Northern agenda, because there was a need to hide behind a bigger entity. Now it is the Fulani Islamist agenda. Incidentally, one of the greatest beneficiaries of that agenda in its mild form, Olusegun Obasanjo, was one of the first prominent persons to draw attention to this agenda. I believe that was in his address at the Anglican Diocesan Conference in Ole around 2019. When he spoke of it, it was still in his infancy, and then I read Akin Oshotokun on the same subject, and then I began to examine it a little closer. And what I have found is this. There is a difference between the Muslim and the Islamist. I'm not a Muslim, and I'm being careful with terminologies. The Islamist is more or less an evangelist, the Christian evangelist. He wants everybody to become Christians such as he is. The Islamist also wants everybody to become Muslims just as he is a Muslim. Now, Pantami is a cleric. In my view, is probably the balance for Oshibajo in the cabinet. But the point is this. When Kami Adeosun did something much, it was a crime in some ways, but Shitu did much the same thing. Shitu served out his term. What was the difference between Shitu and Kemi Adeosun? First question we should be asking ourselves. Second thing, Pantami. If Mutalab had been caught in Nigeria and he had been rehabilitated, would he be sat in Pantami's chair? Pantami was very explicit in the things that he has said. There are videos that have surfaced. I am not a speaker of Hausa. I can't vouch for the correctness of the translations. But my people says that if you do not go anywhere near where they will lie that you were, okay, you went into a room, you came out with a rapper, your friend's wife is behind you, and you say, God sees me, I did nothing wrong there. Pantami did more than that. He was specific in his support for Al-Qaeda, for Osama bin Laden. That is on one level. The report of the minute of the JNI meeting is circulating freely everywhere, online. To now have the instrumentality of the federal government by Shekere, I think it was Professor Choyinka, God bless him, Shekere Garuba coming out to talk about how he has repented. Come on. Come on. This is how we go about saying that we are rehabilitating terrorists. But it is the impunity that the Pantami incident represents that should alarm all of us. They no longer hide the fact that some people are above the law and they are above institutional conventions and standards. It's no longer hidden. It's now in everybody's face. And we are sat here talking about 2023. In the light of all of this, there is a critical need to examine the basis of our union. Understand what is it really that we hold sacrosanct in Nigeria. Our values might be different, but if we all agree on the basic rules for our existence, of course we can live in peace with ourselves. But you cannot bring something as brazen as this Pantami issue to the public space, and the only response you're getting from government is he has repented. He was 30-something. I think Mutalab was 23. He was a young man. I remember what I was as a 23-year-old guy. Impressionable. If I had been caught for one of the things I did at 23, I'll probably still be in jail. But at 30-something...
Well, thank you very much, Dele Farotimi, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, there was something you said about JNI, the Jamaatul Nasri Islam, which they have denied in actual fact. I think we need to put that point
fair enough.
out there. Yeah, but thank you very much for your insights, for your passion, and for your patriotism. Thank you for
very
joining
much
us.
for having me.
Thank you.